Okay, hello everybody. Now it's the last presentation before lunch. We have to step out to the reporting today. Maybe you're a bit tired, so I'll try to keep you awake during these last 45 minutes. So I'm Erik Bjernulf. I'm from Sweden to talk about Agile product management. And you know, something like half a year ago, I was doing a presentation around finding joy in Agile product management. And exactly at that time, I saw the announcement of Agile on the beach. And the colleague of mine thought, you know, Agile, beach, joy, you know, it doesn't really fit together, doesn't it? So I had to send in an application to talk. And I'm really happy I went here because I think it's a really good conference. A lot of different people, we have different tracks, different product management and development, a lot of different people to talk to. So, a short background to where I come from, so you understand what I will talk about. I'm from a very small company named after a mountain to the far north of Sweden. It's actually north of the polar circle. It doesn't have so much to do with what we do. What we are doing is that we do product management with technology companies. In big companies like Ericsson with 25,000 developers, about 1,000 product managers, down to smaller teams like the one we just heard about, where we have maybe 10 people and one product manager. And the challenges are actually very similar in these organizations, even if, of course, we have differences. But if you have 1,000 colleagues as a product manager, you have to work in a different way than 100 as well. We do trainings, we do consultant work, we actually doing product management as well now. We try to keep a close connection to universities, so we work with institutes, like this Making Institute of Technology, which is situated in the corner of Sweden, the south coast. So we try to understand new theories and convert them into theories and ones that you actually can use in real life. We have developed an online training for Agile product management, and we are one of the founders of the ISPMA, the International Software Product Management Association. If you want to find more about what is software product management all about, you can go into their webpage, ispma.org. Here you will see some of the framework, what is product management all about. You can find a lot of interesting stuff there. So, that's the background. So, why joy Agile product management? You know, we see such success in companies that have done an Agile transformation, that you really see a lot more output. Some people say it's 50% or 20% or whatever, but you really see more output from those companies. They are more successful. And we heard from Dave yesterday that it's natural because it's a scientific method anyhow. I have also said in engineering physics, so I have that comparison that we actually use, but Agile is real science. I agree, it is very much used in this experimental way of working. But we also meet a lot of frustrated product managers. We heard this morning about the stress level. Very often you see that if the output is 50% more from development, that means that product management will have to feed 50% more input to that engineering engine lot. And that creates a lot of frustration very often. But also we see some people who are successful. Because it's not really about doing much more work faster and increase the stress level. It has to be in our way. And we have seen some product managers that really are, you know, joyful in what they do, and have reached that nice peak on this stress curve that you saw this morning, where you have this creativity and really can be more. Still, you have to understand why did you go from Agile methodology to company, because that will have an impact on the way you're working. There could be different driving forces from both. Maybe you want to have high speed, because everything is going quicker all the time. Or it could be that you want to be able to aim more correctly. because that's really the key thing with design, that we have product development. We want to develop the right product, the product that people will actually use. And we see that is easier than Agile. It could also be about reducing cost, not to develop features that nobody will use. Of course, that means that we can actually save costs. It could be that we want to be able to actually employ the best people. And we know that in the Agile environment, people are more happy. So it's easy to recruit good engineers to companies that do work in an Agile way. We also want to be more flexible because it's related to the speed, isn't it? Because the market is changing quicker and quicker, and the things that we didn't expect will happen. So being Agile means that we can be more flexible as well. And as we heard this morning, we can create these autonomous teams, self-managing teams that are more efficient. So this is sort of a good background to try to understand. Having said that, we see that there are other challenges as well. In the good old days, and wonderful. In a way, it's easy for the product managers because very often there was something wrong with the product, it came late. Are there any developers in here? A few? Okay. So if there's something wrong with the software product, it's normally a problem with the software, isn't it, the code. So of course, it's the developer's fault.
Or it could be the requirements.
Yeah, they were late and they were too costly and so on. So in a way, it was easy for the product manager just to define the specification and then sort of relax for a couple of months and then see if the project delivered the right product. Often we see that we still have a fixed date for delivery. We might have fixed contracts. So at some point, we actually have to make this transformation between the Agile development world and some fixed contracts that do exist out there. In that border, we often have the product manager, because now the product manager will have to step up and say, okay, we will deliver this product in time, and then we close the deal, and at the end, if you don't deliver, then it's someone the product manager who is to blame. Still, we see that if you're really successful, you can create really successful products with massive profits, you can have happy customers, and also the product manager can be joyful in this Agile environment. And I mentioned that we have big organizations and small, and there are some common traits to those who have been really successful. So we have identified 3 secrets that you could follow to be really successful and be joyful and be at that peak of the stress curve, I would say. So, which are these 3 secrets? The first one is something we call strategic assets. And a strategic asset is not a property in London or some stock or some other physical asset. It is a tool that you can use to manage and control and inspire other people. Product management is about 3 things really. It's first to define a product strategy. What do you want to do? When you have to develop a product, you work with the developers and develop the product, then of course it's the marketing and selling part of it as well. And to make a strategy is easy. I mean, you can all do that in a couple of hours if you present some nice PowerPoint slides. But you really have to use them as well. And this is where the strategic assets come into place. That you can use them to have everybody on this train in the right direction. It can also be used to align teams. We all go in the right direction. In the end, create the product. So I will go through these some examples of strategic assets or tools that you can use to communicate. As we heard this morning, to push people, the right direction, but also maybe to encourage them to be on that high creativity peak of stress. So one tool I personally believe is really fantastic is the user personas. I mean, you all know what a persona is. Just that you have a persona in your organization doesn't mean that it is a strategic asset. Actually, we very often see that there are some personas used in the development team, and then we go to the marketing department, and they have a different set of personas. And surprise, surprise, sometimes the product we have developed doesn't really say the same thing as the marketing itself. So having a persona doesn't mean that it is a strategic asset, but as a product manager, if you can really embrace this idea and own the persona, then it can become a very powerful tool to get everybody in the same direction. So if you have a process to create personas and make people aware that you actually want to use them all over the organization, not only within the R&D team or in marketing, but also in the management team, that everybody really understands why you have selected these personas and build them. Then this is a very powerful tool, and then it becomes a strategic asset. The next one is something we call driving forces. There was a session yesterday about how you can improve interviewing customers. Of course, that's important to really understand what do the customers want. Or if we are working with B2B products, it's not only the users, there are a lot of people who influence the buying decisions. The research shows that on average, some deals worth more than exactly how much it was. Typically, there are 20 people that you have to convince not to say no to a deal. Finally, there will be one person who actually will buy from you. But there are a lot of people who have to say, at least they can't say no. But the problem with doing these customer interviews is that you will understand what they want today, or actually what they did want yesterday. And there are a lot of trends we want. Forces that will drive increased usage of mobile devices, for instance, instead of desktops and laptops. There's an obvious trend that's already happened. That shift has already happened. But there are other significant driving forces in your market. And if you can identify those few important ones and make everybody aware of that this is happening, then you can have everybody try to understand as much as possible what kind of impact your life will have on my part of the development. So just to list all driving forces that will happen in the world, that doesn't make it a strategic asset. If you really think this through and define the top few that are critically important and make everybody aware of, these are something that you really have to understand and follow all the ways. Then that's a really strategic asset. Yeah. Next one, we know this method of storytelling. It's really useful very often. So if you can create your product story, why are you doing this great product? This football we just heard about, why are we going to doing that? Then it's much easier to sell that to the entire organization, so everybody is aware of that. This is something you really want to do. We have seen some companies that have taken this one step further and actually created commercially great videos just to show this product story to the own organization, including in that case distributors and so on, partners globally. So everybody is aware of what you really want to do. There could be a similar thing around the user, and the user story here is not a requirements format, but the story of the user. Why will your customers be more successful than their competitors? But they want your product and use it in this way. So you can build a similar story around that as we talked about the story. Then related to the personas, you really want to go in the right direction and align the product strategy with the overall company strategy. So if you can define the right target market, the right target customers very clearly, it's also really important to have everybody on board to develop the right product. You see very often that you develop things for too many people. Especially in software, it's so easy. Just about add another line of code, but it doesn't cost you. There's no production cost. When we talk about physical products, there is always the balance that any new feature you add will cost something. Because you have to add a new component, you have to mount it in the factory or whatever. So there's a cost, and there's a natural tendency not to include too many things. But in software, once you've developed it, you think there's no cost. But people around think you forget about the maintenance cost, which could be, of course, higher than the original development cost. But it also creates a fuzziness about your product. It's not really clear what you want to do. If you're trying to target too many different audiences with one product, it is very difficult to have a nice fit to anyone, and it will be too complicated in the end. So in that case, maybe you need to split up and have 2 or 3 products instead that are clearly differentiated. Then I want to introduce something we call resonating focus. It's a big thing to understand, but if one of your customers didn't have visited your web page or from a sales call or whatever, this is what we want them to remember. You know, often customers do have one parameter that is more important to them than anything else. Maybe you are doing something in the health sector and security or safety could be the most important thing for the customer. If you can make sure that your product is better with respect to that parameter compared to the second best choice for the customer, to your second closest competitor, you can make sure that this is something that you can actually build on over time. So in the next release, we focus on the same parameter. So people will know that if you buy from your product, it will be better on security and safety compared to competition, and that's the most important thing for me. Of course, that has to be aligned with the target market. And this is also critically important to have everybody understand. So the people in the development team, if they know this is where we want to go, if there's something that is related to that feature that is in this resonating focus, then we should put more effort into that to make sure that we do our very best. The last one is something we call the value tree. And this is a way to communicate values when we market and sell our product. And you know, especially in B2B business today, typically customers have already passed 70% of their purchasing process before they actually need them. Because if you want to do something, what do you do while you search on the web, right? We spend lots and lots of time to find out about possible solutions to your problem before you, as a supplier, have any chance to influence them directly by having a sales meeting or whatever. So that means that this inbound marketing, content marketing is more and more important. And this is when it becomes a bit tricky, because you have so many different things that you want to communicate around your product. And if it is not consistent, if the message in your on the web page is not exactly the same as the one that you have in the exhibition or in the training material or whatever, if it is not consistent over time, then it's not really credible. So this is a tool where you can focus that communication. I will go through that tool briefly, because I think you need to. So this value tree is both a model and a process. And it's a process to define the right marketing message. And of course, this is also important to show to everybody on the product team, the developers, because if they know how to market the product, it's easier, of course, to develop the right features. So it consists of a sort of hierarchy, where we have, at the bottom, we have actual realization functions that we can implement in the code. On top of that, we have features that you could maybe put in a data sheet or something like that. On top of that, you have more groups of features, you could call them concepts. Then at the highest level, you have the actual value that we deliver to the customer. So we'll come back to this one. So what you do is you start with just post-it notes and note all good things about your product that you want to communicate. Technical, commercial, whatever. Then you'll just add more and more. And when you have enough, you try to group them into two perspectives, sort of a customer perspective and then a technology or implementation perspective. And after a while, typical workshop format, you will end up with this sort of setup. So you have a couple of customer close good things, and then you have technology related ones. And of course, as I'm sure you're working with someone to post it that you want to group them together, maybe some are similar, identical, so you can pick them out. So at the end, you will end up with a couple of these high-level concepts and some more concrete features that you are interested in. And the next step is to try to connect them, because of course they are related, so this flexible impulse in this case will lead to reduced administration. And you should try to not have too many of these connections, because normally everything is connected to everything, but you should only use really strong connections to make this useful. But then you go on and think about the concept, what will they actually deliver to the end customers. So reduced administration is not value in itself. So the value in that case would be cost reduction. So over time you will add more things while you work on this. And typically we see that when we use this method, it takes a couple of workshops. Normally it takes 2-3 weeks to go through that in a series of iterations and workshops. So people go back and think about what's important, what's not important, and so on. At the end, of course, we can add important functions that you have realized in the product. You wouldn't want this to be a complete list of everything that you every line of code, but only the important things that you really want to communicate. So the good thing with this sort of tree is that it can be consistent. You can focus on different levels depending on whom you want to communicate with. If you want to communicate with the CFO or management in the company, maybe you should focus on higher levels. If you are communicating with engineers, that's your customer, you should focus on the lower levels. But the key thing with this tree is that they are all fitting together. So in this case, for instance, you can create a story that in this case, our product helps your bottom line directly because it reduces administration costs. The flexible invoicing allows the deployment, and the CMS integration will make it easy for future upgrades. So you can have it all connected. So if you spend time on creating this value tree, you save a lot of time. You want to create your marketing story, text on web pages, etc. It's all there already. And the good thing is it's all consistent. So In another communication, you might want to focus on a lower level, because that's your starting point. In this case, our invoicing is the most flexible in the market. And it is enabled by our unique block subscription method and AGI, so you can convince the technical guys, the customer, that yes, it's not just some marketing stuff we came up with, that we have flexibility more, so we can prove why we have it as well. So, that was a couple of these, the first secret, the strategic assets. Are there really tools that you want to reuse over and over again in communication? Then we have the secret number 2. And that is about aligning the teams. And the product manager is in a position where you have a lot of communication with everybody. With developers, obviously, with management, with marketing, with more or less everybody in the company. So it's a central role. So that's why it's so important that we actually can align everybody to go in the right direction. Still, normally people doesn't have any authority though. Right? So how do you do this? Well, you can use the strategic assets we just talked about. Because you want to do, as we heard this morning, that you really wanted to, I think it was an excellent presentation about the stress level. You really want to move people and make people aware of where you want to go, to create this big picture. So one of the best things you can do to reduce that overall stress level is to make everybody aware about where we really want to go. Because then changes on so when we communicate from customers with R&D, important things are acquisition main skills. We talked about the driving forces. We identify the target market, personas, to convey as much information as you can about the actual usage of your product. And of course, if you're a small team, we heard about it with this football team, some of you did come from, or football app team. If you're a small team, everybody could be close. But if you're in a bigger organization, very often, or if you're an outsourced team, offshore team of developers, then it's even more important that you actually convey as much of this information as possible to that team, to make it easy for them to take most of their decisions on their own. Having said that, to be efficient in Agile, since we said it means more iterations, it's more output, it also means that you have to feed through new ideas more quickly. So new ideas or requirements have to be passed through from idea that pops up somewhere, the customer or the management or anywhere. It has to go very smoothly. In traditional waterfall project, some companies have these 2, 3, 4-year projects, or you have some really complex industrial projects that take years to develop. And in that case, you would spend 1 year maybe to really work through the requirements up front. But in Agile, you can't do that, because there's a new sprint every second week. So that means that you have to go back into this process and really work on backlog every second week. If this process is not really efficient, you can spend 100% of the time only working on the requirements and doing nothing else. But of course, then you can't use your time to communicate the strategic assets we talked about, because you're all attending these requirements coming up every time. I have something called the product vision as well, which could be some combination of the product story or really what do you want to accomplish at the end, the goal that you want to share. And of course, that could also be a strategic asset in that case, to create this final vision that, okay, we don't know exactly how our product will look like in months from now, but we know that in 2 years we want to have this product like that. We heard this morning about how do you communicate with management. They also are humans, so they have to be treated in exactly the same way. And often, since business is changing so quickly, top management has no clue what is really going out there, what is happening out there. So that means that more and more of the responsibility to set directions actually is with the product manager, the individual product managers in organizations. I mentioned that Ericsson, for instance, and they actually changed their process description. So they have these 28 decisions where management can approve. And they changed the wording from that those for decide to that they confirm decisions, because the decisions that it's already taken in the Agile team and the teams, because it has to move very quickly. But here again, of course, you can work with the business model canvas. It's very good too as well. That you also use the GCAS if you want to change the way you actually make business as well, and not only the product. And again, this product vision, this video I took down. Some companies actually do a product brochure. First thing you do before starting developing the product, because that's a way to show everybody, including management, what you have to do. Maybe you should do these days. You should do a web page instead. But instead, you want to do something that can actually show what you want to accomplish, to have it, to secure support for your product from everybody involved. We have the delivery organization. And to be honest, what we really see in most companies that do implement Agile, the products are in the delivery organization. The products are ready, tested, but customer service support, maybe there's some integration service that we have, they haven't played because they didn't start until the product was released from one day, and then it's too late, of course. They have to do their own preparations in parallel to the actual development. Then we talked about sales and marketing, and again here you can use the value tree. It's not on the list here. And again, if you really want to be agile, you shouldn't wait until the last moment and then the product is released from the developers. You could start developing the marketing message very early. And if you release a new feature every second week, for instance, from the Agile development team, you could at the same time develop a marketing message around that feature, and then compile it all together at the end, of course. So, the second secret, that was about aligning everybody in the organization and using these strategic assets. Now, there was a third secret as well. And we heard about that yesterday. I heard a couple of times during this conference. It's about failing fast. To really use this experimental way of working. And it's easy to say, but if you're a startup, this is obvious, you will do this. But if you're in a big organization where you have a very valuable brand, you really want to ship something and fail and make a lot of damage to your brand value, well, you have to be careful here, of course, on how you do this. But what we want to do, I think somebody said that yesterday, we really don't want to fail fast. We want to come for success. But if we fail, we should fail better. Meaning, in this lean way, that we should learn something from the failure. So, And this is something we could do when we plan product iterations. We had about iterative product development testing as well. And you can plan for different iterations in such a way so we can actually learn from it. And I think it's a key thing for the product manager to build courage in the organization. Not at least in management. That you actually, it's better to go out there and fail better than to do nothing or to wait very long and then release a big product that's outdated. So to build that courage. And to do that, of course, you can again use the strategic assets to make sure that you understand that everything you do is actually aligned with this final picture. So if you compare to the old school, where Agile were working in this area, we used to work with these specifications to really define exactly what should be done. And then of course you take out all this ownership from whoever will do something. So instead you can use all of these strategic assets, the personas, the understanding of the driving forces, and so on. And go away from the control part into this align and inspire instead. Traditional project management is very much about minimizing risk. But it's also about portfolio management, that we want to make product decisions that are low risk. But then of course we miss a lot of opportunities. So obviously we should plan for success in all parts of the organization. So we have, for instance, this story about having the same personas in development and marketing. That's a way to plan for success. But then to actually allow failure on the way. So to conclude this, we see a huge difference in product managers in Agile companies. Some are really frustrated and have a very high stress level. And we have those few roles still that has found the way forward. And using these three secrets to really work on the strategic assets, to invest in them. And the good thing is that you can reuse them all the time. You don't have to do all of this at once. You should, in a way, start iteratively in that area as well. And you start with the persona part. Or start with the driving forces, depending on where you are, of course. And try to implement that, and then take another step. And if you have introduced more and more of these strategic assets, the less you need of detailed specifications. You will also get rid of some of these unnecessary. It's good to have a lot of communication, but in a big organization, it can be overwhelming as well. And if you're a small team and they can communicate in a natural way, but if you have a very big organization, it could be too many persons popping around in all different directions, right? So if you develop strategic assets, you can reduce unnecessary communication in a way to make it clear upfront what you really want to do. So aligning the teams, and I would say the alignment with management is the most important thing. And again, we want Agile because the world is changing more and more quickly. And that means that you have to feed back that information into management. Because we want our product strategy to be aligned with the company direction, but very often we understand that sort of the PM level first, that is something that's going to happen here. Much earlier than you actually have this realization at the top management level, when the sales figures actually go down. So that is really critical that you have this alignment up to management. Then the third one about failing fast. And there are very often comments from bigger companies. Yes, of course, we understand that's good for small companies, but we cannot do that. But that's not really true, because if you take small steps, you can still check if it's working or not. For instance, very often you have some really trusted customer that really are your fans and bring them into the development, and you can check with them without risking brand value, for instance. Okay. That was actually all I have today. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions,